beginning of the season, last game of the season. Now I'm just proud of him and glad to have him win. He's been waiting for, do it against a team that, unfortunately came up a little bit short with at the beginning of the year. And I know he's been waiting at the second crack at this, and God willing, he went out there and put it right down the middle.
Myles Garrett didn't hold anything back after this one, and what he had to say is sending shockwaves across the entire NFL. After shattering the sack record and helping the Cleveland Browns take down the Cincinnati Bengals, Garrett made one thing crystal clear. It was Shedeur Sanders who brought this team back in the second half and delivered the victory. And according to one of the league's most feared pass rushers, there's absolutely no question about Sanders' ability at the quarterback position. This is huge, folks. When one of the most dominant defensive forces in football publicly backs your quarterback after a massive win, you know something special happened on that field.
Time he was going to be able to make it. So I think it was a bunch of different battles, overall that we won today, and it started up here, started mental.
Let's break down what actually went down in this game, because the full story runs much deeper than the box score might suggest. On the surface, Shedeur Sanders' stat line might not jump off the page to casual fans. His numbers weren't necessarily eye-popping, and there were stretches where things looked rough. But here's what Myles Garrett clearly recognized, and what anyone who actually watched this game understands. Shedeur Sanders wasn't the problem out there, not even close. The reality is, Sanders was dealing with circumstances that would have destroyed most young quarterbacks. The running backs dropped catchable passes left and right. We're not talking about bad throws here. These were legitimate, on-target balls that should have been hauled in but weren't. Receivers were running wrong routes, backs weren't getting their heads around in time, and Sanders was consistently putting the ball exactly where it needed to be without getting the execution on the other end. It's frustrating to watch as a fan, and you can only imagine how Sanders must have felt knowing he was making the right reads and delivering accurate throws, but not seeing the results because of breakdowns around him. While the offense struggled to find rhythm early on, the defense was absolutely dominating. Leading that defensive assault was Myles Garrett, who put on an absolute masterclass on the defensive side of the ball. Garrett didn't just play well, he made history. He recorded his 23rd sack of the season, setting a new Browns franchise record for most sacks in a single season. Let that number sink in. 23 sacks in one season. That's not just impressive, that's legendary territory. That's Hall of Fame caliber dominance. That's the kind of production that keeps offensive coordinators awake at night. Myles Garrett has been nothing short of unstoppable all season long, and this record is the crowning achievement of what's been an absolutely spectacular year. And here's the thing, this isn't even his only record. Garrett also holds the Browns' single game sack record with 5, which he set earlier this season. Think about that, 5 sacks in a single game. That's completely taking over a football game in a way very few players in NFL history have ever done. When Garrett steps on the field, he doesn't just play defense, he completely dictates how the opposing offense has to operate. But despite his own historic performance, despite breaking records and putting on a defensive clinic, Myles Garrett chose to use his post-game moment to talk about someone else. He chose to spotlight Shedeur Sanders, and what he said carries serious weight. Garrett was emphatic and confident when he stated that Shedeur made critical plays that led them to victory. This wasn't some generic team-first cliche. This was genuine recognition from one of the game's absolute best about another player stepping up in the clutch.
He's been waiting for, do it against a team that, unfortunately came up a little bit short with at the beginning of the year. And I know he's been waiting at the second crack at this, and God willing, he went out there and put it right down the middle.
And Myles Garrett is absolutely right. Shedeur Sanders was outstanding in this game, especially when it mattered most in the second half. This is where Sanders truly showed what he's capable of, what kind of quarterback he can become when the pressure's at its highest and the moment demands excellence. Something clicked for Sanders and the entire offense in that second half. He started making throws that weren't just accurate, they were perfectly placed. He was reading defenses faster, getting the ball out with better timing, and most importantly, he was leading the Cleveland Browns to crucial points when they desperately needed them. Sanders threw some beautiful passes in that second half that had the crowd erupting. We're talking tight window throws, perfectly timed deep shots, and clutch third down conversions that sustained drives and put points on the board. He showed tremendous poise in the pocket, even with pressure collapsing around him. He demonstrated elite decision-making, knowing exactly when to attack downfield and when to take the smart play to move the chains. These are the traits that separate average quarterbacks from franchise cornerstones, and Sanders displayed every single one when his team needed him most. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, Shedeur Sanders was sacked 6 times in this game. That's a significant number. At first glance, you might want to blame the quarterback for holding on to the ball too long or failing to sense the rush, but that would be completely unfair and wildly inaccurate based on what actually happened. Those 6 sacks were not on Shedeur Sanders. If you watch the tape, the vast majority of those sacks came from the offensive line simply getting dominated by Cincinnati's pass rush. The Bengals' defensive front was winning at the point of attack consistently. They were beating Browns' blockers one-on-one, and they were executing stunts and blitzes that Cleveland's offensive line couldn't handle. When defenders are in your face a second after the snap, there's only so much any quarterback can do. Sanders actually did an impressive job trying to navigate that pressure. He was stepping up in the pocket when lanes opened, sliding laterally to buy extra time, and even scrambling when absolutely necessary. But when your protection collapses that consistently, you're going to hit the turf. That's exactly what happened here. This is precisely why Myles Garrett's comments carry so much weight. He understands this game at the absolute highest level. He knows what winning football looks like, and he saw beyond the basic statistics to recognize what Shedeur Sanders actually brought to this victory. Garrett made it abundantly clear that it was Shedeur who finally got the offense rolling and sealed this final win of the season.
End of the season, last game of the season. No, I'm just proud of him and glad to have a win.
Consider the context here. This was Cleveland's season finale. This was their opportunity to end the year on a positive note, to build real momentum heading into the offseason, to give the fan base something to believe in moving forward. And this was against a division rival in the Cincinnati Bengals, no less. These are the games that truly matter, the games that players and coaches remember, the games that shape how an entire season is viewed. In this crucial moment with everything on the line, Shedeur Sanders stepped up and delivered. The Browns found themselves in an early hole. The offense was completely stagnant. Nothing was working consistently, and Cincinnati was starting to seize control of the game. But then the second half arrived, and with it came a completely transformed Shedeur Sanders. He came out of the locker room with visible intensity and determination. He was making pre-snap adjustments at the line of scrimmage, communicating clearly with his receivers, and most importantly, executing the game plan at an elite level. Sanders orchestrated multiple scoring drives in that second half that completely changed the complexion of this game. He was connecting with his targets on critical third downs. He was identifying the soft spots in Cincinnati's zone coverage. He was making the kind of pressure-packed throws that give your team a legitimate chance to win. And it wasn't just about flashy statistics or highlight reel moments, though there were certainly plenty of those. It was about his leadership under fire, his composure when things looked bleak, and his refusal to let early struggles define how this game would end. When Myles Garrett talks about Shedeur making plays that led to victory, he's referencing specific moments that altered the entire trajectory of this game. He's talking about third and long conversions that extended critical drives. He's talking about red zone efficiency when the Browns absolutely had to punch it in for touchdowns instead of settling for field goals. He's talking about the kind of quarterback performance that complements a dominant defense and maximizes your team's chances to win football games. And let's not overlook the bigger picture here. For Myles Garrett to publicly defend and praise Shedeur Sanders reveals something powerful about the culture and brotherhood inside that Cleveland Browns locker room. It would have been incredibly easy for Garrett to focus entirely on his own historic achievement, to bask in the spotlight of breaking the single-season sack record. Instead, he chose to elevate his teammate to ensure Sanders received the credit he earned for his role in this victory. That's true leadership. That's what championship teams are built on. Despite the challenges, despite the imperfect statistics, despite getting sacked 6 times, Sanders proved he has what it takes to lead this franchise. He showed resilience, he showed talent, and most importantly, he showed the ability to perform when the stakes are highest. Those are the qualities that franchises build their future around. And based on what Myles Garrett said after this game, it's clear that his teammates believe in him completely. So, as we close the book on this incredible game and this remarkable season for Myles Garrett, let's remember the complete story. Yes, Garrett made history with his 23rd sack of the season. Yes, he's been an absolute force of nature on defense all year long. But let's also remember Shedeur Sanders' second-half resurgence, his ability to overcome adversity, and the respect he's earning from his teammates, including one of the absolute best defensive players in the entire NFL. This victory against the Bengals might just be the beginning of something special brewing in Cleveland, and it's crystal clear that both Myles Garrett and Shedeur Sanders are going to be at the heart of whatever comes next.